One of the most difficult and challenging aspects of dealing with markup and CSS comes in the form of forms. Forms are notoriously awkward both for users and for designers and developers to deal with. Typically speaking, in the past, we would have put form markup into heavy table-based layouts in order to get a variety of acceptable visual results on the screen. Now we have some very interesting things we can do with CSS to style forms in an intelligent way, as well as make them accessible. Interestingly enough, by the time HTML 4.0 came out, a number of specific elements for forms came in to make forms more accessible. Ironically, these elements now give us the opportunity to style forms more effectively. So I'm going to start you out in this particular exercise describing how an accessible form can be built, and then Andy is going to go ahead and add style to the form using the elements that you'll learn about here. Some of these elements might not be familiar to you. I'll explain what I can as I go, and let's go ahead and try it out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I've got my 13_02 HTML file open in my text editor. Here I'm using Dreamweaver's code view so I can use the snippets. I'm going to start with the form element itself. And as you can see here, I've given an ID of contact form and filled in some of the attributes necessary to manage the form. So that's quite simple. So the next thing I want to do is insert a label with a form component. Form components should be familiar to you. Inputs for various type of things, radio buttons, checkboxes, text boxes, as we see here. You'll notice that I have surrounded the input element with a label. Here's the opening label with a for attribute, and you'll notice the for attribute and the ID in the input match up. This has to occur in order to relate the label of the input to the particular input type that it is. Why this is important is because the label element is helping the special needs person who has some reason to need more information about this form understand what this particular input is being used for. So close out the tag, and I've also got a span around the company name. So this is one instance of the way that we would go ahead and mark up our form components in an accessible design. So let's go ahead and then add another label, which is a little more explicit here, where you see everything is combined. So we have a label for company name and a label for your name. Now, there is something called a field set. And field sets came in HTML4, and what they could do is they could help you group like items within a form and create a set or a field of like items. So these are the names, company name and personal name, and we're going to assume that they're related within the form. So I can place them in a field set. I'm going to drop in my field set element, and I'm going to take both labels, and I'm going to cut and copy into the field set area itself within the element. So now I have what is known as a field set that is containing two form components that are labeled clearly and are all related within this particular field. Then I think I'm going to go ahead and drop in another field set, which is already expanded out. And here you can see I'm looking for a variety of personal information, such as your house number or name, street or road name, address, town, county, postal code, and so forth. And as you can see in each instance, the for in the label and the ID are one-to-one match because we are relating the label to the form input type. Okay? So let's just save this file for a moment and go ahead over into Preview in Browser. Let's go ahead and preview this in Firefox so you can take a look. Now, it doesn't look very pretty, but as you can see, by default, the field sets have a border around them, and they are grouping the inputs. Now, we're going to use style in the next exercises to make this look good. But as you can see, here we have two grouped sections within the form. Let's mosey on over to Dreamweaver, and we can now add an input for a submit button. So let's go ahead and drop that down below the field set, give that a save, flip on over to Firefox, give that an old roll, refresh, and there you can see the submit button. Not too pretty, but that's Andy's job. So he's on his way into the booth to take it to the next level.